Assalamu alaikum fam, hope you're doing well. Answering some of the questions here that you posted on the community tab. Always love it when we do those because it allows people to nerd out, brainstorm, and we get to kind of bounce ideas and thoughts off of each other, which is highly beneficial. So one of them was about our mistakes as Muslims, shortcomings, irresponsibility, hypocrisy. So something around that. I would say a shortcoming that I've noticed as a revert is how this applies to many people. I wouldn't just say Muslims, but I would say it's something that I'm becoming more and more passionate about is self-reliance. This may be an American thing. Maybe people are more farming styles than other countries. I don't know. I've never left my country before, but I think American Muslims, we have to become self-reliant. We have to have farms, land, and colonize in areas. So this is an area that if we don't pay attention to it, we can be controlled by a secular, abusive, authoritarian system. So, this to me is how we can maintain our faith. Like the Amish. I really am starting to see that the Amish have an excellent model. And I had an idea where, for example, you know that I'm not monetized. I don't make money from what I do. Ever since I first got attacked by hackers and they, stole all that data, I just didn't want the stress to have a Patreon and stuff like that. So I can't do this yet, but in the future, inshallah, I can fulfill my dream. But I had this idea in my head where there is these other Muslim content creators who have their setup. They have super chats, they got all monetization and Patreon and sponsors, like they got their stuff on lock with finances. Since they earn money in the digital realm, they should not be living in cities. No. Instead, they get that money, they go to some place like Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, the place where the land is cheap. They can get some internet, right? And you buy like a house and then some land, and then you start having other Muslims move in around you and you start building a Muslim community. Sort of like, how the pilgrims, I mean, it is sad that they took over tribal areas, but they came with their wagons. They were attacked as they traveled, but that's how the United States got colonized, was they were going around from territory to territory. Well, today the model is different, but the economy that's in the digital sphere can help seed people in better areas where there's cheap housing, and you can create jobs for Muslims there. This is something that I think we need to do as a Ummah, especially in America. Because if we're gonna stay in the cities under liberal control and oppression and dependent upon the grid, we're gonna have some problems. We're sending our kids to universities that hate our dogma. We are around people who enjoy their, Babylonian lifestyle. So we have to do something different, is we grow our own food. We harvest our own meat. We plant our own seeds. We grow our own forests. We move in and create a community that's safe haven for refugees when they come. And we help establish our community and maintain each other there. And the digital people can do this, and they can open a little coffee shop. They can open, some type of manufacturing business. And we literally build our own economy and hire Muslim, buy Muslim, and create a parallel society and live closer to nature. And we build our own schools, right? All within that area. So we can do this because there's land to be bought, right? There's construction to be done. There's masjids to be built. And I feel like there isn't a lot of people talking about solutions. It's more like clickbait, celebrity stuff, like some soccer player did this, you know? I don't know if I'm explaining it the best way, but I really feel like we have to prepare for how they're pushing people into the metaverse, how they are incrementally taking away our gun rights, how they're incrementally taking away our ability to get meat because the vegan activists are insane and they rather have cows go extinct than you eat a steak from a good rancher. And if you if we as a Ummah don't become self-reliant with our own food sources, we're slaves. Vegan, secular, atheist, feminists, they want to give up control of their food supply to lab coats to make weird creations in a lab of highly processed fake food. We, on the other hand, can stick to the system that Allah Azza gave us because He gave us delicious beef and duck and chicken, turkey, and we can be good stewards of the land, good caretakers of the animals, and even have salmon farms, above ground salmon farms and stuff like that. We can create our own food supply. We can do a barter system, so as they push us to have the cashless society, well, we can say, I'll trade you, 2 dozen eggs for, 4 loaves of bread. Like, we barter with each other. We literally have a tight-knit community, and the children will be so much more happier being around other Muslims and away from the people who are into Cardi B and Nicki Minaj and the more violent children and the children who are being systematically confused, right? And I know you know what I'm getting at by that. We have to, have that phrase, instead of do not comply, it's do not rely. Instead of Big Bear, he said in one of his streams, don't say resistance is futile, say the future is fertile. And I really thought about that because if we want to have polygamous society, we want to have more children being born, we want a pro-family future, we want independence, we want to get out from the bars and the prostitution and the gangs and the materialism and the vapidity and the total surveillance grid by the atheist coders and their love relationship for robots and such. One of the solutions is to get out to the mountains again. And even in the end times, when the Ad-Dajjal comes, people are told to flee to the mountains. They're not told to stay in the city, right? And with all the looting and riots and crimes and drug crimes and all this stuff going on, because of, really bad leftist leadership and woke philosophies that are being pushed out of the universities, we're going to have more problems coming up. So it's better to strategize as a Muslim community. How do we do that? Right? So, for example, look how the children are being taken in Sweden and Norway. Well, if we set up our own communities, we are a tight-knit unit, right? Somebody's making honey, somebody's giving raw milk, somebody's making cheese. Those beautiful village-style ways of living are what survive economic collapses, survive warfare, survive inflation, survive a lot of things. We've been tricked and lied to that city, liberal life of partying, hedonism, selfishness, miserliness, greed, that all that kind of stuff is better than being on a farm independent and taking care of property and being around and close to animals and nature and raising kids on a farm instead of raising them in the inner city where they hear gunshots every night and ambulances and drama, right? You can be more spiritual sometimes when you're around nature instead of just being around sin all the time that tests your iman in a hyper-focused way. So I feel like we as a Muslim community, we have to start talking about that. You see a lot of people in their cars and their Apple Watches, their fancy shoes, how to speak confidently, stuff like that. And then none of them are talking about the economic enslavement, the debt slavery that is coming upon the people. Because if you go into debt, you're a slave. So I feel like another one of the shortcomings we have is we are falling into the credentialist type of title worship that the secular liberal atheists have. That's their religion, right? It's not how much religious wisdom you have. In fact, most of the liberal teachers I've had have mocked religious studies and philosophy and history even. They're focused on very strange things. And the title worship has been proven to be just this illusion. No doubt it can help, but you have to ask yourself, is $60,000 of debt worth the title that in the end the liberals will still not care about? They'll still call you a conspiracy theorist, they'll call you, unqualified. It doesn't matter if you have 7 degrees, it will never be enough for them. So the debt didn't count for anything. And while we still have cheap books and free libraries, we can learn without going into debt, and we can make our own banking system that's according to the Sharia, that isn't focused on riba, and we can keep the money within the community and, have a safe haven for orphans. Like, we have to build. And yeah, I understand people build in other countries that are very poor, but nobody's talking too much about all over America. You can't say go to Texas and that, because the liberals are leaving California. This is on record. More people are leaving California than moving in, and they're going to Texas, and they're gonna try to ruin that state. They're gonna try to San Francisco, annihilate. They're gonna San Franciscanize it. So we won't have many places to run. And Florida and Texas and Utah, they're not going to be able to hold the ground. All Muslims can't flee to the same states. We have to spread out. And we have to have pockets and cheap land that's fertile, where we can build businesses, make hotels, we can build, is in those states that I mentioned. We bring the business and the economy and create our social safety net for our fellow believers. I've really been thinking about this a lot, right? As the secular liberal atheists tell us we're non-essential, you're in this job, you're non-essential, stay home, take a check, have a soft form of communism, be lazy, watch TV, drink, Biden with his crack program. Many people can see what's occurring. So we have to have solutions. So I just feel like one of the shortcomings is, and one of the irresponsibilities is, there isn't enough YouTubers really speaking about this encroaching problem that is surrounding us as Muslims, because we have to have some businesses, we have to have a way out. Like, imagine, you have 6 friends, you all pull your money, you get a tiny little house, each one of you, and one sister knows how to make hijabs, she's a good seamstress, she has a little business, she starts selling things online, she lives there. Then she gets money, she opens a physical location. Then another brother, he's good at mechanic stuff, he opens a mechanic shop next to that sister's business. We literally build infrastructure, we move close to each other, right? We have one family that grows, the corn and the tomatoes, another that grows the beans, the pumpkins, and we all are helping each other, right? That's the future. We gotta go back to that old system. Too many are going into the metaverse, obsessing over modeling, weird stuff that's not important. We gotta go back to what it was before. We can't let them trick us into, come to the university, go into debt, sit in a cubicle, and now you've made it. And live in a tiny apartment and pay, half of your salary, never see your kids, don't go in nature, you're inside a building all day, sitting down. No. right? No. And brothers can be polygamous in the farm much easier because each woman has something to do. She has a little place where she lives. You build a guest house style place for her, right? And she has her little house. The main house is in like here. Like the architecture you could do, the building plans, the blueprint, all that, you could totally lay it out. You buy like 30 acres. You have the main house where everyone goes, and then each little mini house around that. You have the cows, you have the alpacas, or whatever kind of animals you want to have on your farm, right? And the children are learning real survival skills, right? These are something that I think is more beneficial than, okay, all the kids go and work for the electronic companies that are going to make weapons of war. Sure, some can do that, no doubt. But more of us should be finding ways out of the grasps of a secular, liberal, atheist government that seeks to stomp us out, right? So many Muslims are oppressed all over the world. They have nowhere to flee. We must create places where they can flee. And this can be done. So I'd say that's something that we have to do, something I'm looking at. It's not enough to say, oh, this one guy does it on Instagram, and that's enough. No, I'm tired of hearing so many people being lazy. They're like, oh, so-and-so does it, so no one else needs to do it. How many Muslims are there in the world? Quite a lot. So if you have, a couple people who talk about what I'm talking about, who says we can't have more? Who says we can't have multiple interests? There's too many lazy people. Like, oh, so-and-so did this, so-and-so did that, so we don't have to because they already went there. Who said you can't do it too? Why are you standing behind the shadow of someone else? Why are you writing on the achievements of others? Lead, right? We need leaders, not armchair people who say so-and-so did it, so just sit down and continue being passive. We need active people of all kinds creating an infrastructure for us fellow Muslims so that when we are having more people revert to Islam and having refugees come in, they have somewhere to go. We have to do it. It has to be done. And this can be done all over the world. I'm just giving local examples because I know what my local economy is like. And this can really help us survive the occultists. It can help us survive the degeneracy, the temptations. And we can show people why Islam is good, right? When they see their children are in a safe community, when they see virtuous, modest women, they see large families, they see a different example than the liberal hellholes like San Francisco, where it's just a funnel into hellscapes. We can do it. And I feel like that's a place we should be responsible in and a gap that should be filled. So hopefully this inspires you and helps you to brainstorm as well. So yeah, hopefully that answers the question. Jazakallah khair.